Today, we're going through the rise of the fierce, compassionate, and empathetic Queen of Atlantis. We are discussing the ascension and full story of Kida. Hello, I'm Isaac from Want So Videos, where we discuss fun topics for fun people. I'm focused on spreading magic by examining Disney, so if you are new here, consider following my adventures on Instagram and subscribing. I also wanted to let you know that if you're interested in supporting my Disney content beyond watching my videos, it would mean a lot if you made a pledge over on my Patreon page. By pledging over there, you're able to get videos early, be recognized in videos, and gain access to the wonderful Want So Discord server, where you can talk to me and other fun people who support me. While the Discord server that is filled with conversations on Disney love is only $3 a month, any donation helps me feel more secure and ready to continue to share the magic of Disney, so please consider checking out my Patreon page. That is linked below. Now let's begin to dive into the highly requested story of Kida, whose fans are as adamant and resilient as her, since they ensured this video was made. Especially after watching the sequel film Atlantis Milo's Return, I knew this was going to be a topic I had to discuss for all of you fun people. And thanks to the encouragement of so many of you, it's finally happening. Of course, if you have any other ideas that you would like to see come onto the channel, definitely let me know in the comments section. After a power source descended from the stars, the Kingdom of Atlantis grew in strength as they discovered electricity, modern medicine, and even the wonders of flight, due to the wondrous energy that derived from the cosmic crystal. What the citizens of Atlantis were able to do was establish their civilization with unbelievably advanced technology for the time period, all thanks to that cosmic power source they called the Heart of Atlantis. This massive crystal that floated above the city fed upon the collective emotions of all who came before, and in exchange the consciousness within it provided power, longevity, and protection to its people. Through the connection with the crystals and the leadership of the royal family, Atlantis dominated the world. Due to Atlantis' affluence and strength, around 85 to 8,800 years ago, the king of Atlantis, King Kashakimnetic, became arrogant with power and escalated their use of the crystal. Instead of using their new technological powers for good, the king began to build a fleet of flying machines called Kedics to rule the sky, and constructed artificially intelligent leviathans to wage war in the sea. Atlanteans used their weapons to expand their borders, colonize the ancient world, and subjugate the people they took over. During this time of prosperity, conquering, and war, the king and queen also had the princess of Atlantis, a daughter named Kidakagash, who you know as Kida. Unfortunately though, while Kida was born into the great empire her family had constructed, she would not be able to live during this time of opulence and might for long. Early into Kida's life, the hubris of her father led to a weapon being created that was so destructive that its accidental discharge created what is known as the Great Flood, that had the potential to eradicate Atlantis completely. But before the entirety of the kingdom was destroyed, the crystal bonded with the royal blood of Kida's mother, calling upon her to save the city by summoning the crystal guardians to construct a force field around the center of Atlantis. All the young Kida could do was cry and scream for her mother as she watched her mother sacrifice herself to save the city her father had endangered. The Queen of Atlantis became lost to the crystal after being bound to it for too long, as her connection had to endure as the city was buried beneath the depths of the ocean. Understanding the arrogance that he had once possessed, Kida's father in turn decided that he must remove the temptation of the crystal from his people forever, so no one would repeat what he had done. He never wanted Kida to be forced to suffer the same fate as her mother, as he knew if Atlantis needed a savior again, they would turn to her royal blood. In hopes of further solidifying his people's longevity, he ordered the destruction of his empire's history and hid the Heart of Atlantis beneath his throne room, ensuring that the glory of Atlantis would be lost. Even Kida, the inheritor of Atlantis itself, was forbidden from being educated in any capacity. That world that was led by a fearful ruler and was forced to remain ignorant was the Atlantis that Kida grew up within. Growing up, Kida lived amongst the horrors and ruins of her home, eventually forgetting what Atlantis had once been like when she was a little girl, even forgetting most of what happened when her people's destruction came. As her father's memory held onto the crippling disaster he caused, hers faded.
All I can remember is the sky going dark and people shouting and running.
But even though Atlantis was broken and she retained little information on life before the Great Flood, Kida remained sure that she had a responsibility to protect the fate of her people and Atlantis. To keep her home safe from all who would attempt to threaten Atlantis, Kida trained to be a strong and skilled warrior who could use her strength to overwhelm hostiles. Over the many years she trained, she became fierce and relentless, unwilling to risk the deceit of any foreigner, leading to her, for thousands of years, becoming capable of killing outsiders on sight.
1,000 years ago, you would have slain them on sight.
Kida patrolled her borders and was scavenging around her home, just waiting to strike if she was ever called to do so. By doing that consistently for long enough, she eventually uncovered some secrets. But that's for later. Even though Kida was not yet on the throne, her people came before everything else. As she watched her future subjects, though, over the thousands of years she fought off threats, Kida became disturbed and deeply saddened by what she witnessed. Kida wanted to keep her citizens safe so they could live long, grand lives, but as time passed, she saw their way of life degrade. They weren't flourishing, they were fading and were slowly suffering. But when she brought up the idea that her people needed help, the king disregarded that point of view. The king valued hiding the truth to their undoing, resistance, and vitality more than the ability for Atlantis to rebuild and thrive again, and this led to conflict between Kida and her father. Although Kida can seem quite forceful, violent, and aggressive at times, she has a kind heart that is unwilling to relent when she can help others. After seeing Atlantis crumble around them after thousands of years, and seeing her culture degrade before her eyes, she feels the burden and depression from watching the slow decay of her home. Kida even goes to the extent of tattooing herself with what her animator Randy Haycock explained are marks under her eyes to represent her many tears for Atlantis. She would never forget how they suffered.
The kings of our past would weep if they could see how far we have fallen.
Committed to assisting the kingdom regain their past glory and move past their fall from grace, Kida looked to their past for guidance. She felt she had to understand what had allowed her people to rise originally so that Atlantis could move past their tragedy and construct what they had lost. Maybe the secrets that were lost in the past could guide them to their future. This goal sets her down a new path as she scrounged the city for answers, which included the discovery of an underwater mural of text that she just couldn't understand yet. Centuries later, when Kida led a small group through the Earth's many caverns and catacombs, they stumble upon a large group of outsiders approaching their city. The Atlanteans keep watch on them as Kida began to convince herself that these people could provide Atlantis with the necessary help she had been hoping would arrive. When she begins to scope out the expedition, she hoped they would work with her to undo what had occurred to her people. That's why when she sees one of the more innocent members of the party get injured, Kida decides to help heal the outsider before she goes back to Atlantis. When the expedition eventually finds Atlantis after following Kida through the caves with their drill, Kida and her group confront the expedition and discover the one she had healed can speak Atlantean. Immediately she welcomes them and brings them to her father, who immediately dismisses them. Kida begs her father to allow them to accept their assistance, but he refuses to give up the solidarity they had established.
Our way of life is dying.
Our way of life is preserved.
Unconvinced, Kida singles out the Atlantean-speaking man from the visiting party named Milo Thatch. He explains to her that long ago a man infiltrated Atlantis and recorded all of their stories and knowledge, but when Kida looks at the pages, he realizes she cannot read the Atlantean script, which convinces him that he has to help her explore the city. As Kida and Milo scour the city for answers, they bond as they attempt to understand and learn about each other. Specifically during their discussion, Kida focuses on explaining to him the state of Atlantis. Kida explains to Milo that Atlantis needed to be restored, and that the long stagnation of their culture had beaten them away, turning them into nothing.
I wish there was something I could do.
I have brought you to this place to ask you for your help.
In hopes of finally uncovering the answers to the mysteries around her home, Kida then brings Milo to the underwater writings she had discovered many years ago on patrols, and to Kida's astonishment, he is able to translate them all. Milo deciphers the truth behind the heart of Atlantis, and how they were still alive, something citizens of Atlantis hadn't known in thousands of years. But unfortunately, Kida wasn't able to take action on this information. When Milo and Kida emerge from the pond, Milo's commander Lyle Rourke attacks the duo and forces Milo by threatening Kida to bring him to the heart of Atlantis in hopes of capturing it and selling it on the black market. After scrounging the city, Kida is forced to watch as Rourke ransacks her father's chambers and strikes him down until they find the heart's hiding place. That would be the last time she would ever see her father. The party descends below the throne room inside the crystal chamber, and Kida witnesses the heart of Atlantis for the first time since her childhood. Instantly, Kida falls to her knees at the sight of the kings of the past, and soon after, the crystal senses the danger from Rourke and his minions, which leads Kida to being called upon to protect her home. Just as her mother had done during the time of the Great Flood, during Atlantis' invasion, Kida bonds with the heart of Atlantis. As the future queen, Kida was destined to accept the responsibility to protect her people, and now her time had finally come to achieve that. But when that process was complete, she becomes encased by the ransackers of Atlantis and was shipped away. Milo goes to her father to learn what had happened to Kida, and once he learns that her absence would end all life in Atlantis and the king's own life passes from her departure, Milo knew something had to be done. Milo leads a team comprised of Atlanteans and his friends to go after Rourke, and together they successfully destroy his transport and the greedy man. But that destruction leads to the dormant volcano beneath Atlantis to awaken in a dangerous way. With haste, the team returns Kida to the city, and it is there she and the heart of Atlantis raise the giant stone guardians from their slumber and create a force field to protect the city from the lava. From that point, Kida is released from the heart of Atlantis and embraces the man who had helped keep her kingdom alive. Now that Atlantis was safe again, Kida graciously provides gifts to those who had protected Atlantis, while she also welcomes Milo to her home, as she had grown a fondness for him and excitedly awaits his assistance in the rediscovery and regrowth of the city. But even though excitement was around them now that Atlantis was free of the mercenaries, there was a reality that had to be faced: the death of Kida's father. The king's passing meant that it was his time to be remembered along with the other past rulers orbiting the heart of Atlantis. And it also meant that it was Kida's time to become the Queen of Atlantis. While Kida felt ready to guide her people on the next point in their history, to truly bring her civilization forward, she still needed to discover how to resolve the mistakes of her father. Over the next few years, Queen Kida marries Milo, and they work together to reverse the ignorance and fear of the past and begin to transform Atlantis into a place of knowledge and learning as they uncover more information that had been lost for thousands of years. While Kida understood the warnings of her father, she was willing to risk the misuse of the crystal's power that was now allowed to shine overhead, for she wanted to help her people rise again. Through their discoveries, Kida was now aware of the war that her father had waged against the world before the Great Flood, and feels a great burden for what her family had put her people and the world through. This anxious feeling only becomes worsened when she learns of a creature that could be an Atlantean defense mechanism. Kida just fears that the war her father waged may never be over for Atlantis.
I feel responsible for what my father did. I want to understand his decision. And I am afraid the answers are not in Atlantis.
Queen Kida, Milo, and their friends travel to stop the monster and succeed, which allows Kida to see the good that she can accomplish for the world. She is taken aback by the support and gratitude from the people they help save.
Each new person has new thoughts, new ideas. Your world has much to offer. I hope one day my people, the people of Atlantis, can offer as much.
Though Kida begins to feel more optimistic over the state of the world, the words of her father continue to haunt her. After being told for so long that her people should remain stagnant under the sea, she begins to fear the crystal might be too powerful for her people to handle. But when Kida comes across a man whose people were influenced by an Atlantean from long ago, she is told that the power she wields is neither good nor bad. As a leader, she has to know when to share her wisdom. Only she can choose Atlantis' destiny. After feeling encouraged by what she had heard and seen from the human world, and after retrieving a mystical Atlantean artifact, she knew what she had to do when she returned to Atlantis. Kida understood that her father was just attempting to protect Atlantis and the world from themselves, but she understood that he was wrong. She felt the gifts that Atlantis had to offer should be shared with all to improve the world.
The brightest light is worth nothing if hidden in a cave. I do not want the legacy of Atlantis to be the destruction of its civilization.
Queen Kida decided that it was time for them to share their light with the world by using the crystal to return to it. For 8,000 years, Kida was forced to witness the degradation of the once great kingdom of Atlantis. She saw her people struggle, her culture fade, and their knowledge vanish before her eyes. Everything Atlantis had once been had fallen apart due to their arrogance, and as the future queen, she could not allow this to happen again. With the Atlantean spear, Kida allows Atlantis to rise to the surface so that they can not only return to their former glory, but spread peace and prosperity to all. She didn't want to simply undo her family's mistakes and restore her city. The noble, the kind, and the strong Queen Kida desired Atlantis to lead the entire world forward. So, what do you think? Do you think Kida made the right decision with the future of Atlantis? Do you think she was an admirable queen? Let me know below, and while you're down there, be sure to check out more linked Disney videos in the description. If you'd like to continue to see more magical discussions like this one, then don't forget to click that subscribe button and the beautiful bell if you're new. Thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon who are amazing supporters of my videos, and as always, thanks for watching and have a magical day.